You were conditioned to be virtuous, to play by the rules, to always do what's considered right even when it causes you pain. But what if that's precisely why you're falling behind? Machiavelli didn't regard morals as noble traits. He saw them as instruments useful only when deployed with precision. Blind morality wasn't strength, it was fragility. And in reality, fragility attracts one thing: domination. As Niccolo Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, a man who lives entirely by good deeds will be ruined among those who are not good. So, if your aim is survival in a world shaped by deceit, strategic power shifts, and unstable alliances, your first step is to discard the script handed to you. Because those who taught you to be righteous, they rarely practice what they preach. Let's uncover the first layer of this uncomfortable truth: how morality becomes a weapon used against you, and how Machiavelli would peel back that illusion. Moral principles make you predictable, and those who are predictable are easily manipulated. A moral individual might claim, "I'd never deceive anyone. I'd never turn on a friend. I always treat others as I wish to be treated." Noble as that sounds, to Machiavelli, it's a template strategy guide for exploitation. When your values are immovable, adversaries don't need to overpower you. They simply craft scenarios where your ethics betray you. Too faithful to exit, too honest to shield yourself, too gentle to retaliate. And while you're anchoring yourself to your cherished principles, others are quietly exploiting every weakness you've just signaled. Never make your principles obvious. When they can't anticipate your boundaries, they can't manipulate the outcome. Stay fluid, adaptable to appear virtuous while acting with necessity. Because power doesn't reside with the most upright, it resides with the most unreadable. Morality without authority renders you vulnerable. You've seen it before. The truth teller gets dismissed. The devoted is discarded. The generous is used. In theory, ethics are admirable, but in practice, they're dangerous unless backed by power. Machiavelli argued that seeming moral is far more useful than being moral. Why? Because appearing virtuous earns trust, while lacking real virtue gives you flexibility. If you're ever faced with the choice between appearing ruthless or being destroyed by compassion, opt for ruthlessness without hesitation. Not from cruelty, but from calculation. Power first, ideals second. If not, your convictions will become tools others use to dismantle your influence. Have you ever tried appealing to someone toxic, thinking a little more empathy might help them understand? That's ethics without influence. That's offering your hands to wolves and hoping they turn into lambs. Morality isn't designed to elevate individuals, it's designed to manage the collective. Most of the values you were taught weren't meant to make you powerful. They were meant to make you compliant. Turn the other cheek. Judge not. Forgive everything. Avoid revenge. These aren't universal truths, they're behavioral chains. Machiavelli knew this better than most. That's why The Prince was penned not for commoners, but for those in power. Machiavelli didn't tell rulers to be kind, he advised them to project the illusion of kindness. A prince must be a fox to spot snares, and a lion to terrify wolves. In other words, you must learn to recognize when moral rhetoric is being used to shame, manipulate, or weaken you. You must learn to disengage from guilt when it's used as a weapon. You must see moral posturing for what it really is: a disguise for control. When someone demands ethical behavior, ask yourself, is this truly about ethics or just about keeping me compliant? More often than not, the answer reveals the game. Your morality becomes their tactic. A skillful manipulator doesn't oppose your values, they bend them to their will. They tug at your compassion to dodge responsibility. They exploit your loyalty to anchor you to hopeless battles. They use your honesty to extract damaging confessions. They call on your forgiveness just to remain close enough to betray you again. And you'll believe you're taking the high road. But you're actually walking into a trap built on the very values you hold sacred. Machiavelli would call this being haunted by your own reputation. So turn your values into conscious decisions, not automatic reactions. Show empathy only when it costs you nothing. Grant loyalty only to those who would bleed for you. Extend forgiveness only to those who suffer without asking. Never distribute virtue freely. Make them earn it through struggle. Machiavelli didn't scorn morality, understood it as a privilege reserved for those already in command, not for those still clawing their way to the top. If you lead with transparency, faithfulness, or goodwill in a world driven by dominance and deceit, you'll be crushed and forgotten. Because here's the harsh truth. The world doesn't honor virtue, it respects power. Moral virtue only becomes valuable after you've secured influence. Before that, it's just an open wound waiting to be exploited. Now, let's uncover how to simulate morality for advantage, how to use righteousness as a facade while wielding a blade behind the curtain. You'll learn to present as innocent while operating with the precision of a predator. Because in Machiavelli's world, only one type of person prevails. The one who knows when to wear the saint's robe and when to vanish into shadow. You now see what morality truly is through Machiavelli's Lenza costume, not a crown, a pacifier for the crowd, not a standard for leadership. But the illusion of morality? That's a different force entirely. Here's the next brutal insight. Those who look moral often wield more power than those who are moral. Why? Because morality worn like armor makes you a target, but morality worn like a disguise makes you untouchable. This is the Machiavellian craft of virtue manipulation. You're not here to destroy goodness. You're here to turn it into a weapon. Present as righteous to neutralize the naive while executing with cold precision. Machiavelli never claimed you had to be wicked. What he said was that it's unnecessary for a ruler to truly possess all virtuous qualities, but absolutely essential to appear as if they do. Look honest. Look just. Look compassionate. But when it's time to act, strike without delay. This is the signature of masterful manipulators. They come across as sincere, dependable, even harmless until the moment they execute. And by then, it's already too late. Think of the politician who grins while stripping away your freedoms, the CEO who speaks of empathy while eradicating competitors, the partner who vows loyalty while secretly keeping backup plans. These individuals succeed not because they are virtuous, but because they appear virtuous. Let others project their ideals onto you. Give them nothing genuine, only a mirror of what they hope to see. And while they place blind trust in you, you'll already be rewriting the terms of the game. Morality is performance and you must be the star. In most situations, it doesn't matter if you're genuinely good. What matters is that you look good. We live in a world that worships optics, headlines, surface impressions, and emotional cues. That's why one of Machiavelli's sharpest observations was, everyone sees what you seem to be, but few know what you truly are. So, if morality is a stage play, on your part with precision, condemn deception publicly even if you're more skilled at it. Speak of fairness while rigging the system behind closed doors. Console someone in grief while silently extracting information from their pain. This isn't hypocrisy, it's strategic theater. And Machiavelli would argue, if you don't perform the role, someone else will, and they'll win because of it. Master your expression before you master your destiny. Every subtle glance, every well-timed silence, every calm, "I understand," is not sympathy. It's influence delivered with emotional precision. Use the illusion of virtue as camouflage while navigating hostile terrain. Ever wonder why some ruthless people get caught? Because they drop the act. They forget the game isn't truth, it's perception. Want to execute something ruthless without backlash? Make them believe you're incapable of it. Machiavelli observed this in powerful rulers. Those who held control for decades weren't brash, they were disciplined with their disguise. They opened schools while launching attacks. They praised unity while dividing alliances. They wore robes of purity while wielding blades dipped in blood. In today's world, donate publicly to conceal private ambition. Admit minor faults to distract from larger sins. Champion the vulnerable not because you care, but because it earns you unwavering loyalty. Give adversaries nothing to strike because you've laced your venom with sweetness. Let them feel secure. Let them feel morally superior. Then, pass right by unnoticed. The moral high ground is the perfect sniper's perch. While others wield ethics to guilt or disarm you, you can use it to dominate the entire narrative. Accuse others of violating moral rules you don't even follow. Portray yourself as the one who tried to do the right thing even when your every move was calculated. Cast your opponent's actions as immoral, not ineffective. People are more moved by what feels wrong than by what simply doesn't work. Machiavelli recognized that the public doesn't crave truth, it responds to emotional theater. And no narrative strikes deeper than the image of moral superiority, especially after you've already secured your goals behind closed doors. Let others bicker about who's right. You gain the upper hand by presenting yourself as principled, even if you never live by those principles. They'll anoint you as virtuous, never seeing the dagger you carry. You've moved beyond guilt, beyond the compulsion to be good. You've entered a mindset where morality is used like camouflage by a general, not for comfort, but to win wars. Here's one of Machiavelli's most chilling revelations. In the deeds of men, especially of rulers, the outcome justifies the path. Not applause, not purity, just the result. So while others cripple themselves trying to stay clean, you wear gloves. You smile. And you leave each room with exactly what you wanted. Let's now uncover what to do when someone attempts to morally corner you. How to turn guilt into leverage. Dismantle your opponent's moral high ground and become untouchable through deliberate ethical adaptability. You don't have to eliminate morality. You only need to wear it like a crown and remove it when it no longer serves you. When you stop being ruled by ethics, the world doesn't fall silent, it pushes back. People will challenge your integrity, lay guilt traps, and attempt to shame you into submission. They'll pretend they're defending what's right, but Machiavelli saw the truth. Men judge more by appearances than by intentions. Everyone sees the image, you alone know the substance. They want to lock you in a battle of appearances. What you need is resistancy, a mental armor thick enough that shame can't break through. When they try to guilt you, shift the perspective. The righteous mob will cry, "How could you do that? That's not right." People like you are what's wrong with the world. Most people respond by explaining, softening, justifying. That's where they lose. Machiavelli would never debate ethics on their terms. She would change the premise entirely. You don't argue if it was moral or immoral, you redefine morality itself. Say, "I did what had to be done." Or, "You speak of ideals, I speak of results." Or, "That's your code. Mine doesn't kneel to guilt." Your goal isn't to convince them you're virtuous. It's to show them that their version of virtue holds no power over you. Let them preach morality. You deliver outcomes. Don't engage with the sanctimonious expose their foolishness. No one is more dangerous than a person convinced of their moral superiority. You won't outlogic them. You won't win by debating. They're not arguing to gain clarity. They're arguing to capture the moral spotlight. So what does Machiavelli suggest? Don't confront them, disarm them. Let them vent. Let them throw accusations. Then calmly respond with a line that makes them appear unhinged. Try, "You seem really worked up about this," or, "This is business, not a sermon." Deflate their outrage. Let the audience see you composed while they collapse into performative virtue. Without strategy, moral outrage is just background noise, and once you reveal that, it loses momentum. Recognize when morality is simply a mask for control. One of Machiavelli's most chilling insights was, "He who intends to deceive will always find someone eager to be deceived." And the most cunning manipulators? They use morality as their weapon. They don't say, "Do this because I want it." They say, "Do this because it's the right thing to do." In other words, they've shackled you with an invisible contract you never agreed to. You must learn to decode these moral traps. A decent person would translates to a compliant person would. "Don't you care?" means let me twist your empathy against you. If you were truly loyal, really means let me shame you into submission. Don't engage with the moral frame, respond to the tactic beneath it. Don't say, "I'm loyal." Say, "Loyalty doesn't mean obedience without limits." Don't justify your compassion. Say, Compassion without standards is just weakness in disguise. When you call out the manipulation, it loses its grip. Let them believe you have boundaries until you decide otherwise. One of Machiavelli's most potent techniques is calculated moral delay. Let others think you're operating under ethical principles until the moment ethics no longer benefit you. Why? Because people drop their guard around rules. They stop paying attention. They start trusting you. They confess secrets. That's when you make your move. This isn't about reckless betrayal, it's about timing your ruthlessness with precision. Turn the other cheek once, twice, 3 times, then strike, in a way they never anticipated. Stay quiet during the storm then. Take credit once it passes. Offer a second chance, then withdraw it right when they expect grace. Use your image of virtue as a smokescreen. The longer you play the saint, the more devastating your shadow becomes when it surfaces. Guilt is the rope they'll try to wrap around your neck, so cut it. The last internal weapon moral manipulators rely on is guilt, and Machiavelli would hammer this truth into you. Guilt is a leash. They only pull it when they fear your independence. People use guilt when they want you to stop progressing, to prioritize their comfort over your purpose, or to restrain yourself so they won't have to confront you. You don't need to be heartless, you need to understand the truth. Guilt is only valid when you've truly done harm. Not when someone's discomfort is stirred by your autonomy. When guilt is aimed at you, ask this: did I actually violate a real boundary or just disturb someone's illusion of who they thought I was? The answer will either liberate you or reveal you're still in chains. They'll label you selfish. They'll call you unfeeling. They'll claim you've changed. Good. That means the strategy is working. Morality is a tool. You choose when to wield it and when to lay it down. But the moment it becomes your burden, you've already lost the battle. Now, let's construct the Machiavellian blueprint for ethical dominance. How to handle your values like a switchblade. How to be feared without being despised. And how to wear your morale not as protective armor, but as a disguise you remove after victory. Asterisk, asterisk. You've already seen how morality becomes a snare, how people dress up control in the language of ethics, and how the virtuous often manipulate more skillfully than the wicked. But Machiavelli never urged you to become evil. He didn't say you must sacrifice your soul for power. What he taught hidden between the lines was how to handle morality as a weapon rather than a shackle. Because the most dangerous person isn't the one without values, it's the one who commands their values, turning them on or off as the moment demands. This is the essence of Machiavellian ethical power, where you select your principles instead of being ruled by them. Your morality should serve your mission, not enslave you. Most people fail because their values are rigid, unchanging, idealistic, and naive. They say, "I'll never lie, I always forgive. I could never betray anyone." And Machiavelli would frown, because once your adversaries learn these things about you, they stop respecting you. They start exploiting you. But imagine if your morality was dynamic. Imagine choosing when to tell the truth, when to offer forgiveness, when to protect and when to strike. That's true freedom. Never let morality become your master, let it work for you. If your values don't support your survival, your authority, or your vision, they're not virtues. They're burdens. The most intimidating individual is the one capable of kindness but not dependent on it. Cruelty without control is savage, but kindness without boundaries is weak. History's most formidable leaders weren't ruthless. At every turn, they were capable of ruthlessness. That's what made their compassion powerful, rare, deliberate, unforgettable. When others know you can be kind but also realize you could destroy them, they treat your mercy as a privilege. If they sense you have no capacity for force, your virtue is dismissed as harmless. Machiavelli's advice was clear. A prince must not hesitate to incur the reputation of cruelty when it is necessary to keep his subjects loyal and united. When it is necessary, that's the key. You don't need to delight in the game of power, but you must be ready to participate. Be fair only if it doesn't cost you control. Be generous only if it buys loyalty. Be merciful only if your enemies are already defeated. Tailor your ethics to the context, not the context to your ethics. This is the point where morality becomes a tactic. The error most people make is trying to apply one unwavering rule to every situation. But Machiavelli advocated for adaptive ethics, the skill of modifying your actions based on the stakes, the players involved, the risks, and the potential long-term benefits. If honesty boosts your credibility, speak the truth. If deceit avoids bloodshed, lie. If kindness earns loyalty, be generous. If fear ensures control, be intimidating. Your decisions are no longer driven by right or wrong, they're guided by what's most effective now. Stop asking, is this the ethical thing to do? Start asking, does this move bring me closer to influencer, further away? The world doesn't reward the morally upright, it rewards those who produce outcomes. Being loved without power is meaningless, but being loved after you've gained power, that's how legends are made. Machiavelli didn't scorn love. He understood that love without dominance is fragile, fleeting, and conditional. But love that follows fear, respect, and awe that is enduring. As he wrote in The Prince, "It is safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But notice said, if you can't be both, because in the grand strategy of power, the ultimate goal is to achieve both. Lead with dominance, inspire love with legacy. Make people obey from fear and remain from admiration. You achieve this by crafting a life that's beyond reach, one so formidable, so commanding, that your occasional moments of decency become the stuff of legend. In your early ascent, lead with unpredictability, pressure, and control. In the middle phase, build selective alliances through advantage. In your final phase, display virtue just enough to craft a legacy no moralist could ever rival. Here lies the final Machiavellian principle. You are the rule. There is no universal morality. There is no absolute direction. There is no right thing, only what maintains your ascent, survival, and command. You write your own doctrine. You define your principles. You decide where to draw the line between mercy and severity. Many will label this evil, but Machiavelli would call it awareness. At the pinnacle of power, there is no courtroom, no jury, no objective standard. Only this: did you prevail? Did you endure? Did you leave behind a force so unforgettable that it outlives your body? If yes, then your morality did its job, because in the end, history doesn't glorify the virtuous, it immortalizes the ruthless who mastered the image of virtue. You weren't born to be sacrificed. You were born to reign. Let them keep their innocence, you'll take the crown.